Okay. Uh, Today we're going to talk about my wife beater and how I look like I just woke up. No, no, no. Let's go ahead and get into it. Uh, what I want to talk about is how come you see people who are crooked seem to be in so many positions of power when it comes to politicians, when it comes to religious figures, when it comes to people running the world, when it comes to business, your manager, and so many other positions. And basically, what I'm going to gear towards is the desire to want to be able to prove yourself and to need and your ego fiending, Jodeci, for or desiring really bad for confirmation that you are relevant and that other people are beneath you and that you need to be praised. Basically, is a something that many humans have a hard time ignoring, especially those who think that or have been told that you're supposed to be in power or you're important. And so, a lot of times, what I'm trying to say is, uh, people who feel that way when they often when they mingle with others in a social atmosphere where it's not called for them to lead the group. Just relax and let things go as they will with conversation. Uh, they find themselves not on the not on the not on the scale that they want to be looked at. They don't want to be looked at like everybody else. They feel insecure in some form or fashion, and oftentimes they're not given the same respect without a position or title given to them that forces others to have to respect them. And so people that are drawn to that, there's a lot of people that are drawn to that from uh, nerds who want revenge and feel like they should be in a position of power and that they want to get back at all the people who made fun of them or called them lame or whatever. And so now they have people working for them, and boy, are they going to give it back to you. You have it in people who were abused as children, and many forms from parents abusing them to teachers abusing them, and they feel like, okay, now it's my turn, and this is what you have to do. People did it to me, so I'm going to do it back to others, and that's the way the world works. And it got me this far, and so you know, uh, whatever I have to do, stab you in the back, lie, uh, work my butt off 24 hours a day, sell out. None of that stuff is as much a concern to them as reaping the reward of of uh, of praise and of status and of course money and being able to flaunt it in front of others. Let me go on a bit of a tangent for a quick second. Now that I'm thinking, that's a big thing within the world. Not many people steal and kill because they have an absolute need to survive. The majority of people who commit crimes in this world are often times doing it because, ironically, because of some form of insecurity where they feel like these thoughts are new, so I'm trying to phrase them. So give me a little bit of a second. If it doesn't come out right, just walk with me, and maybe as you hear me talk more uh, in later forms, you'll be able to understand some of the stuff I'm saying isn't. Don't take it the wrong way. What I'm trying to say is the majority of crimes I don't believe are committed out of necessity and need. Uh, the fact that you know I'm hungry, or my children are hungry, or somebody has a disease and I need to be able to pay for them to be able to get better, or I have no roof over my house. Those are real things. That's necessity and need. Does not justify the means somebody would go about and try to do something, but those are realistic things people need. You can already guess where I'm going towards with this. The fact that, you know, somebody else is on my corner and taking business away from me, and I want to do something there, that's not a necessity and a need. That's a business move. That's a that's a that's an ego thing a lot of times. And I have to get this off my computer real quick. It just popped up. All right. Or the need for some people want to get caught when they do crimes because they want that status of being looked at as a bad boy. And so in school, you'll often see people go about and go out their way. I'm going to come back to what I was talking about earlier. I'm not going to forget. But you'll see people go out their way to do something, get caught, and laugh about it. And then everybody looks at that person like, oh, that person's that guy. He's willing to do that thing, you know? And so what I'm saying is when it gets down, when it gets down to the life of being able to eat, having shelter, and take care of yourself and be safe, uh, that doesn't really put the person's mind in criminality. Uh, a lot of times, being able to see the person next door to you having more attacks your ego. And as men, often that makes men or us want to do things that are criminal in nature. And I'm saying that to say, if everybody you know is poor, according to another country's standards, well then, let's use the Dominican Republic, for example. It's a third world country. But Haiti is more poor than the Dominican Republic. Now, if you're a Dominican and you hear me saying this, I'm not trying to, you know, speak absolute facts because you would know more than I do. I'm making a comparison, and maybe my comparison should be another country. But right now, I am using these as a comparison. But so my point is, and I'm still not going to forget where I was going from earlier, uh, 6 minutes ago. But anyway, there was a time many Dominicans were happy or they were content with what they had. And the reminder always was, we have it better than Haiti. Haiti has it pretty bad over there. And so as long as you have it better than somebody else, you're okay with things. Or you're not drawn to do crime on a certain level. But when somebody else comes in and shows you, hey, this is what I have, and let's say you had, electricity, you had beds for your children, you had a job to go to, but somebody else comes in, they have a car, they came in on an airplane, they're going to the fanciest restaurants that you've never walked into before. They have cell phone, they have laptop computers, they have video games. They're going on excursions, and they're flaunting this stuff in your face. Other countries are doing this, and they're also taking your women. And when you have those things going on, well, then the other person starts to look at that over across the street, and they're like, hey, 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 this is my house, this is my home, this is my block, and you're doing that on my block, and I'm not getting any pay off of that. Where's my you need to be paying me something. Or, okay, I'll make you pay for something, but I'm just saying that even if it's not somebody's country and it's their neighborhood or whatever, that same aspect consistently happens when you have people drawn to crime, which is, it's not poverty necessarily that draws people into crime. When you mix drugs, when you mix laws that make certain things illegal, when you mix guns together, inevitably you will have a culture that breeds from that. And from that culture, you have a culture that drops down in in some of their hopes and some of their dreams and some of their beliefs in a system that proves that, hey, they don't have faith in it, along with the culture of a drug culture is what I'm saying, where with that comes a loss of morale, discipline, and sticking to something and believing or being content with what you have. Because chemically, your body, your emotions are up and down. Your brain has been altered in different kinds of ways. And then your neighborhood, the people that you're around, you have to now act in a certain manner to be able to protect yourself, even if that's not who you are truly in your heart, sincerely. But now that's the character and the mask that you have to wear that's oh so real. But that's what you have to do. So I'm saying that to say, uh, when you're in this situation, that's what contributes to a person doing crime. But if you look in certain countries where they're in the desert and they're just sitting there and they have nothing to eat at all, and you don't see people committing crime and killing each other. They're not on drugs. They don't have somebody right next door to them for them to be able to go take something from. So what am I going to steal? Dirt from my next door neighbor? He's as poor as I am. And so we need each other. And that's when humans actually come together and start working together is when everybody has nothing and we're all on the same level playing ground. It's when somebody else has something else and you're under the influence of drugs. Uh, you're under the influence of lack of hope, uh, and all the things that I named before that I can't remember because I'm trying to think of other things right now. But those things contribute to a person committing crime. So that's where I go back again, where a person isn't isn't doing these crimes because they need something. It's because they need something of that I guess most people would consider needing something to survive. A lot of people that are committing crimes, the majority are committing them because of the fact that you know there's something that they want and status, ego, uh, and business and those kind of things they're doing because they want it basically. And so if I want your car, if I want your house, if I want your life, if I want your whatever thing you want to name that is taken or stolen, then you know that person, depending on how desperate they are or what kind of or what's influencing them naturally or not naturally, because stress is also one hell of a drug. If you live one different type of a life and you live a hard enough life to where your mind doesn't need anything artificial to put inside of itself, you can go out your mind and sometimes a way different conversation. But that's when you need drugs to help you because you're so messed up. But taking all this back to what I said I was going to come back to about 12 minutes ago, what ends up happening is when crooked people are drawn to power, what they see is that they see hypocrisy, contradiction, and they use their life because everybody believes and justifies whatever they do that is wrong. They justify themselves to be right in some form of fashion all the time. And even if they say that they're wrong, if you talk to that person long enough, they're going to go back to, well, the reason I'm able to do this is because I was raped. My uncle raped me as a kid. So, that messed me up in the head. Or the reason I'm able to do this is because, my mother, she used to cuss me out. My mother was stealing from somebody. I come from generations. Or, my it's very rare that people tend to stick like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If your whole family is successful, then there's a good chance you're going to be successful, not because you as an individual are successful, but because the norm inside of your family has made it so that if you're not successful, that they're going to look at you as an outcast, and nobody wants to be outcast from the group that they're with or the group that they're in. And so they're going to do everything, that's my sink back there, but they're going to do everything that they can, if you hear that noise, to try to make themselves in what's considered to be normal among their group. And so if somebody would have been somebody who was like, hey, I don't really care to have a job. I don't really care to make six figures. I don't care to have the baddest wife, materialistic things. But if they come from a family where they constantly see that, and then when they don't do those things, well, then you're going to get that person not necessarily wanting to achieve those things, but caring more about their social group. And they're going to go pretty far to do whatever they think is necessary to fit in because they don't want to be an outcast. And so the same thing happens with a lot of groups as far as if you want to say poverty is concerned, that sometimes inhibits certain strides for what we consider a relative term of success, where a lot of people don't have the same drive to succeed because they figure, my friend over here, he's my boy since we were 4 years old. My mother, she turned out okay. Everybody I know is all right. The more that I succeed, the more I'm leaving my group. The more I'm being outcast. Everybody's congratulating me, celebrating me. But the more I learn, I'm with people who ain't like me. They ain't the same. They're not coming from the same area. And so they don't relate the same things that I relate. We don't, and ultimately communication and bonding and chemistry is everything, regardless. And so now that if you're around all these people who you feel are different and you don't enjoy it, because sometimes people enjoy it, being around people different. But if you don't enjoy that and you experience that and you know that I could have been successful, well, then sometimes people don't want to be that because they figure I don't want to leave the people I'm with. And they value that more. And each individual will have to talk to you about their experiences on that if they talk to you about that at all, because sometimes they have a private regret for the fact that they didn't do what they thought they could have done. But still, again, it's the social group. So I'm saying when crooked people are drawn to power and they're willing to do far more that is wrong or right, far more than the upright people are willing to do for power, it is often because of status. And to some degree, you know, when I say people want to fit in, the only other thing people want more than to fit in is to be looked up to and praised. That's the only thing people want to do more than fit in. And so when you want to be looked up to and praised, that's when you get the degree of competitors. And when you get a degree of competing, some people are willing to do anything. Anything? Anything? Forever, ever, ever, ever? Yeah. Yeah, 3,000. Anything. And so let me read my notes real quick. Crooked people are drawn to power and are willing to do far more that is wrong or right, far more than the upright. This is the reason why positions and groups of power are often infiltrated and run by crooked people far outnumbering the good. This does not mean good people do not run operations. It only means that good people will not run operations in as great a number compared to the corrupt. The crooked people can be honest, but also lie sometimes. They can be loyal, but they can also cheat sometimes. They are willing to play both sides to gain ground in whatever situation. So they might be honest for 10 or 15 years as long as you know them, as long as they don't need to lie to rise up. But the point is, they're not above doing that. They're not above lying. They're not above cheating. And they will do it if things aren't going their way. And if they feel that it will help them get what they want or need to achieve something. And so, again, this does not mean good people do not run operations. It only means that good people will not run operations in as great a number compared to the corrupt. The crooked people can be honest but lie sometimes. They can be loyal but cheat sometimes. They're willing to play both sides, and that gives them an advantage over the righteous when it comes to being able to fill positions of power. And this is because the crooked people do not have to walk a thin line of morality that you can consider what do you want to say perfection? Until I can think of something better to say. But the righteous lose respect the minute they do one thing unrighteous, and they are heavily critiqued as hypocritical for doing one thing wrong. Whereas the one that is seen as not being perfect is oftentimes excused and given allowances for his behavior being being unjustified because it makes him look more human. And sometimes people admire him or her flaws of doing thousands of things immoral or wrong. And that's the thing that's human nature. It depends upon the person listening to determine who do you trust more. Do you trust somebody who's experienced something a lot? Now we're changing the conversation. Who's experienced something a lot and lived one life that was hypocritical and contradictory in many different ways, and he was going to do anything? Or do you trust the person who lived a clean life, saw those things and had those opportunities, but decided that they were going to stick straight and narrow, I guess it's a cliche, and stick to it because they had principles that they believed in, and you know that you can trust this person or bet on this person, and that this person's being, their existence, their faith, their essence is tied to what they stand for in that respect, and you have a lot of evidence for it. Or the person who lived one life changed, but now you know what he's willing to do, and he did not have an easy path, and he walked through roads that were more, that could have been more violent, or things could have been more. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, it's like people think that you just have these things coming off the top of your head. No, you don't. But basically, what I'm trying to say, he could have lived a life that was more challenging in many different ways, and decided after having done all that, he's weighing both sides, and he's made a decision that he truly believes now. And it's other like that. If you're listening to that and you're thinking that, that's where I'm tying this to, I'm not. See, those are two totally different things. What I was talking about. What I'm talking about is the person who's willing and still in a particular life where they are willing to do whatever they want to do to be able to make it. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why you always have people in the world who are always going to outnumber whatever you consider, you know, people who you like, technically, people who are honest, people who aren't playing games with you, people who can be sociable at the same time. And so you're never going to find people like those oftentimes in positions of power. I would say Barack Obama appears to be kind of like that guy as far as a straight up and down guy, and a likable guy and a social guy. And so I'm saying that to say President uh, Obama, of course, that's who I'm talking about, but I want to give him the respect because he more than deserves it. But in saying that, what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to give an example in saying that, but what I'm trying to say is something else. I want to say something else with what I've just said, and that is, uh, this goes back to when I was talking about people who were wanting status, or people who commit crimes aren't in the majority doing so because they need to eat. And what I'm saying is, to bring it back to this power thing, is the people who seek power and are good, oftentimes they're just not interested in competing on a certain level because they don't have that type of hunger to prove themselves, and they don't have that insecurity to have to necessarily prove themselves. Not to say everybody in the position of power is insecure. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm trying to say is, take a guy who who goes to work every day, has a wife and kids, family, and then somebody breaks in his home that he knows. Now, that person leaves. Now, is this guy going to go, therefore, and chase that guy 2 days later, find him, and shoot him and kill him? Most likely that's not going to happen. And how does this go back to crooked people and, drawn for power? What I'm saying is, there's there's extents and desperations that somebody who's comfortable feels like, they think about it and they're like, they don't want to do certain things unless their life is in danger. They have a different rules that they play and abide by. In other words, uh, In other words, uh, they go and chase him. Now you're on the news, you know, or now this other person might have a brother and they come back for your family or something like that. And you have a war going on where this guy already has a job, he already has a car, he already feeds his family. So in his mind, he's thinking to himself, I could go back, but it's over now. And if I see him again and address him, we'll address it straight up as men. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to tie that to the extents people will go to try to get something. And I'm saying when when people are content, oftentimes what they're content with is just that they're okay, and so they feel like, hey, I don't need to be the life of the party. I don't need to have this status to say something. I'm comfortable with what I have, and so oftentimes that limits on the scale of who has the power, because the people who often have a lot of power, they have something that the person who's content doesn't have. So what is that? Greed. And so when a person has that type of greed, well then there's no satisfying that. And so that's what a lot of crooked people have. They have greed. And so that's what makes them go towards those statuses. And so I'm saying that to say, you know, intangible things like lying and stabbing you in the back and all that stuff, those are jokes for those kind of people. And so their thing is to get more than you, uh, to get what they want by any means necessary, and to have that status and to flaunt it sometimes, and to that's that's the life. And so people again, it's a comparison over and over again. I'm trying to get somewhere to get it out my mind. So if I'm repeating myself, so be it. But but the people again, when when they feel comfortable, and people who are necessary or not seeking, they are smart, they're powerful, they can do a lot of things, but they don't do what other people are like. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do more? Well, let's use Barack Obama for an example. Why aren't you doing the civil rights for people? Why aren't you galvanizing the youth again with your time? And you could do so much in different countries and so much for other black people, and so much more, that so many things you can say. And but he has a family, he has a wife, he has kids. And the more you do, here you go again with crooked people. They might kill you. They tried to kill him many times when he was in office. I worked at CNN, and we wouldn't even air all the attempts on his life because they found out that airing that gave those people who tried to make those attempts on his life publicity, and then other people who were trying to do it found out what that other person was doing wrong, and they were communicating with other people, and then they could figure out how the CIA works. So a lot of times, all the attempts on Barack Obama's life were never aired. And so I'm saying that to say, uh, people who are in positions of power and who are good, a lot of times, they find content because they don't have that greed and they don't have that hunger. And so that hunger to prove themselves to other people from an insecure standpoint. A lot of times the reason they get to where they get to is because, hey, they want that job, or they can achieve those things that they worked hard to be able to achieve. But I'm sure that they can tell you that they're always outnumbered, and sometimes what they have to do is play their play their mind against groups to be able to keep themselves in positions of power. And then you can, of course, imagine how a good guy can then become a bad guy. I think Hugo Chavez, that's his reputation, was he came in a really good guy. And if you follow his civil rights uh, plights, as far as how he admired Martin Luther King, then you can see this guy looked like he had a sincere life as a youth, and then he was a soldier to back it up. That he was willing to die for, trying to liberate people and bring equality and justice. But then, as he grew in power to become president, well, then The people around him became crooked and corrupt. If this is his story, I don't know if this is his story, but I'm going. But anyway, so you have people around you. It's the point would still stand. You have people around you getting corrupt. Now your mind is here, there. You have to play off of other people to be able to keep yourself in power and to keep yourself alive. And so you're never going to make that many people happy when you're in positions like that. And then sometimes it makes you crazy. And now it's you against everybody. And me against the world. And so then now you're corrupt, but you got to be corrupt, not from an immoral standpoint of where your heart was, but from a survival instinct, a survival aspect. And so I'm going back to when how hard it is not only for a good person to get in that position of power, but for a good person to be surrounded by crooked people and corrupt people and maintain being good and being able to exercise their power among the crooked and the corrupt people who are constantly thinking to themselves, we'll kill you. Okay, let's go ahead and throw this girl at him and catch him cheating on his wife then. Let's set him up. Okay, let's steal the money from him. And now he's all broke. Let's see what he does when this situation happens. And so those are things good people always have to deal with. And then they're thinking to themselves, they know who did it, but now they're fighting a war where, they're outnumbered. So they can't operate in a system to retaliate against the people doing those things against them because those people are going to do anything and everything. And they don't have enough soldiers in their corner to be able to retaliate in the ways and methods that they have to retaliate without breaking what they stand for upon their principles. So going back to that, I'm saying when you have the good people, I guess that's what it's coming down to with terminology. That's not really where I want to put it. But when you have people who ain't crooked and people who aren't corrupt, that's what I'm really trying to say. You're not going to see them oftentimes being in high number of being the managers and being in those positions because they figure, if they got into that job, okay, I want to do this and I want to get this position of getting paid. And they're like, somebody else tells them, well, hey, we would love to have you as the manager. Hey, why don't you think about being a manager? Then technically you'll get those people where they're like, okay, I'll do it. Or they had a manager or they saw something going really wrong and they're like, hey, this whole thing is so messed up that I'll go into that position of power to clean it up because I don't like the way it was done to me. And so that's when you often have good people in positions of power is often when something happened to them and they enter into it because they feel like, hey, I do know how to change these things. I am willing to take this risk and sacrifice with my life or with my career or, to try to, what do you want to say? When you bring two groups that are kind of like, I'm willing to compromise in different areas and willing to work out agreements, or they know that they can do those kind of things to improve the situations for those who are less strong than they are and or in the same position that they used to be in. That's when you typically have what drives people with a lot of principles to be able to pursue positions of power. They're not coming at it oftentimes with ego. That doesn't mean that just because a person has an ego and wants status is unprincipled either. You can have a highly principled person who has a status and an ego. We all have egos. I have an ego. You have an ego. And we all want status of some sort. So, I mean, that's not to say by any means any of that. And that's not to put myself in a position of not being crooked or corrupt. I'm just here to talk. Those who know me can speak for who I am. But I'm speaking off conversation. So in saying all that, I'm saying, let me read my notes real quick. Again, I'm going to repeat myself when I was saying that the good person always has to walk such a tight line in the sense where it's impossible, and everybody's looking to make that person a hypocrite. Everybody's looking to, you ever have that good kid in class who one day they said something smart and the teacher sent him to the principal's office and he almost got suspended or something. Then you had the bad kid who said something every single day, probably started something with that other kid with it. And that kid gets to stay in class every single day and nothing really too much happens to him. That same scenario plays out in life. Not only does it play out in life, but it plays out in status again. Women tend to like people who have that swagger and who have that, that, so when they like that, that gives attention, that brings entertainment, and people are always drawn to energy that's kind of like moving, stick and move. And so the more you play with danger, the more you play with fire, you know, the more attention you get. And so what do men like? We like status and attention, and we love women. And so there you go. And why do women go after power and want those things? Well, it takes a woman to be able to dive more into that, and I can easily talk a lot about women from a man's perspective, not so much from a woman's perspective, of course. But if I had to go there for the sake of what I just said, I would have to assume it would be for, you know, the same feelings. Ultimately, greed, status, uh, and sometimes there is an element in there of seeing some men as enemies and wanting to prove or vengeance, and not to say all. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, in freestyling my thoughts, I won't disregard that could be something that could draw some women to wanting some positions of power when these types of women are corrupt, and these types of women are immoral, for lack of a better word, or willing to do anything to get that power. I'm not talking about the women who do it, with principle, and do it because they see things that they want to correct, and they have been warriors and chiefs, and whatever the correct term that you want to say for female soldiers and presidents, and run worlds. And so I'm not, don't get my words twisted. And so, but I'm saying ultimately again, you know, I don't want to be too long-winded because this has gone on for a pretty long time. But so I'll wrap it up real soon. But ultimately, I think I've gone quite a few places in trying to show, you know, continuously or consistently why you see, why you're going to see, you know, good people not willing to spend the energy to retaliate against against corruption, because to retaliate against somebody who's willing to steal, lie, uh, kill, stab you in the back, set you up, to retaliate against that person, oftentimes you have to galvanize people. You have to collect evidence to show who this person is. You have to protect yourself, protect your own neck in the midst of getting these people back, and that takes a heck of a lot of energy as one person. When you're talking about that one person is thinking, I'm going against a committee, I'm going against a group, I'm going against a company, and so I'll get fired for doing that. My family won't be able to eat, and so oftentimes people let things go, and the crooked people continue to prosper and in vast numbers. And so consistently, the good person finds himself, you know, outnumbered, and you're going to be outnumbered, and you're a sheep among wolves.
I wanted to add something that just uh, didn't come up with sound, so I had to delete it. So that's why you see me with a microphone now. So maybe you can hear me better. But anyway, this is the second time I'm saying this. But good thing I wrote it down so I don't forget everything. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to say is bribery and how corrupt people love to have something on you to make you a part of the group. By that I mean they will often ask you, or they'll set you up to do something wrong in order for them to trust you. How ironic is that? Their trust is built on leverage, meaning I know you are on my team and I can trust you, Because if you do anything wrong, then I can expose the crime you did. So therefore, you won't do me wrong because I have something on you that can break you. And maybe I'll also share with you something I've done wrong, and we'll bond or connect on our treachery, or we'll bond in our flaws. So if you come in and you don't do something for others to have that type of trust in you, then you won't be part of the group. And in a democracy built on the majority wins, then in that type of society, the lone wolf gets no money, no favors among constituents, donors, super PACs, sponsors, lobbyists, or anybody that can help get you to another level, because they have power and you need their influence. Now let me go back to something that I said. In this society, the majority wins. That's a democracy. The definition of democracy is the majority. So the majority do the vote. They get what they want by law. Doesn't mean that's right. Doesn't mean that's moral. You know where I'm going with it. Slavery, women not having rights, what we've done to other countries as far as wars are concerned. Some of the wars are concerned. Jim Crow laws. On and on and on. You can find examples that you can hold to America as not being a moral beacon for where, the majority approves something, but everyone can see this is immoral. And so let me go back to what I have written. So going back to the political side of it, as far as constituents, super PACs, lobbyists. Now, these guys often sit in positions of power for long periods of time, like the Supreme Court. I'm not trying to say the Supreme Court is immoral. I'm saying that people who are in these types of positions, they sit there like people who in the Supreme Court sit there until they die. And these people who are in companies, maybe your family, anybody who's in these positions of power that are in a group, they often are there because of their power, and because they're often been put in that position among a group of people who accept their power and want them to be able to have a say in what happens with other people. They've been elected to something. They've been put there because they're like record keepers, for lack of a better word. These groups or heads of groups hold secrets of other people, or they have agreements that they've made with other people over years to build those agreements and build that trust. Or they have favors that various people or various families or companies have done for them, or that they've done for others, so that they can say, now it's your turn to do something for us. And if you don't, that's a mark on your record. Now, you can't be this person if you don't have longevity, or if you don't come from a family that proves who you all are. Often. There's some exceptions, but not very many. Okasa had that problem, I believe. But these people are trusted with information in order to push agendas for other people and their own agendas. One agenda may be to decrease African American voting in Atlanta. Another agenda may be to overturn Roe versus Wade. Another agenda may be to push a law that puts more people in prison for doing recreational drugs and to give them longer sentence terms. These people are sometimes small groups, or they may be bosses. They're always bosses. Or they also may be they're also found in every company, every political party, and every country. Leverage is the name of the game that they play. And the best way to have leverage on another person is to have something that will make that person compromise their beliefs or force that person to do what you want them to do. You don't always have to be corrupt to play that game. Because if I need to get something done, if you need to get something done, and you're not immoral and you're not corrupt, you can still make somebody compromise or do what you want them to do by saying, I have this on you and I'll expose it. There's nothing immoral in that. But typically, technically, whatever term you want to use, that is the language of the corrupt. And they often play that game by setting someone up to do something that gives them leverage. So oftentimes they have more points to have leverage on you because they are willing to do something immoral, which is setting you up to do something that compromises you. And again, sheep among wolves. And so let me see if I feel like repeating myself a million times in different ways. But basically, that's the order that they play by. I'm not going into that Illuminati stuff. If you believe that, that's what you believe. I don't subscribe to that because in short, without doing this whole segment on it, you don't have to have that term when you already have, super PACs. You already have lobbyists. You already have, in various countries, people already set up with literal names, Donald Trump. And those people are doing things clear as day for you to be able to see. And they have committees with names on them and things in the books that you can trace. And, as far as some of the other things, eating babies and drinking blood, and I don't want to lose anybody that's listening to me, but I mean, what you believe is what you believe. I'm just saying, you already have enough corruption and enough stuff that people are already doing to get in different positions of power to make sure that they are able to get their agendas across. And people who do not walk that line and are trying to walk the line to of things that need to happen that improve the lives of everyone else, and humanitarian human rights, and good managers who are able to state what the company needs without taking advantage of other people. Those people are always going to be outnumbered by the others who are pushing an agenda and willing to do any means necessary to get that agenda across. Be it a law, be it an action, be it life, be it death. That's a group. And those groups exist. And the sheep are outnumbered.